so we're gonna get ready to put the heat shields and the propeller shaft back in. So these don't cross like they want to cross naturally, but your left is gonna be on your left and your right is gonna be on your right. So what we gotta do is take the cable, feed it back into here. This is like somewhat flexible, so you can probably get away with it. Clips in, but probably should have done that before we clipped it in. Would have made it a little bit easier. This one, just put that right in as well. This is just getting it back into the cabin. And interfering with something. I don't know what. Okay, so this one is going in, and it's got this little rubber grommet. Just want to make sure that's in the right spot. There we go. So it might just take some, moving around. Something like that, what you want. All right, so we're gonna get ready to put that big heat shield that goes on here, but I'm just gonna quickly clean over here because this is pretty nasty. So I'm just using brake parts cleaner. I'm gonna get this all cleaned up before we go and put that up. The heat shield that goes on first, or the first heat shield, there's 3 of them. There's like a little plate in between the 2 big ones. The plate and then the second big one go on after the shaft is in, so this is the only one that goes on first. So I'll show you that in a second. I'm just gonna wipe down anywhere I see any nasty stuff, get it cleaned up to the best of my ability. Perfect. All right, so now we're gonna put our heat shield on. It's kind of gonna go behind the diff flange like that. And then there's little studs that sit out of the body that you just gotta find. And put this heat shield over. And there's 4 of them, one on each corner. So I'm just gonna get a couple of these on just a little bit. These always get bent, so like over here, it's a little bent up. So it might take some wiggling to get it properly mounted, or bending back. It's really light aluminum. And I hate these little nuts like this. They just don't have much of a head on them. So when you go to loosen or tighten them, you really gotta, apply the force direct and evenly, or you'll strip them, and that will make you have a bad day. Don't have a bad day. Okay. Now we're just gonna tighten them all up. And there's old markings of where it actually sat before, so I'm gonna try to put it back in that exact spot. These aren't that serious. They don't have to be tight. As long as it's pressed against the body, it's not going anywhere. Make sure you have these little rubber grommets on. They fall off sometimes, and they keep the metal from hitting the gas tank. We're gonna go now to the transmission. I'm gonna remove the cross member. I'm gonna put a tranny brace underneath and just hold it up, and then we're going to put our drive shaft in, torque the 3 bolts that go to the output shaft on the transmission or onto the guibo in, and then we're going to torque the 6 bolts that go to the input shaft on the flange on the diff, and the 2 in the middle at the center support bearing, and we should be almost good to put the exhaust back in after that. Just going to put that brace back up, and actually, yeah, I think we're good for exhaust after that. So let's get to that now. All right, so we're going to start by removing these 2 heat shields. They're already half taken off just from taking other things off. So you have these large body nuts, very similar to the ones that we just did back there. They're just a little lighter. They have a built-in washer. Got to really hit these flat and even to get them out. Just make a note over here. When we take it apart, this plastic one goes over the metal one. Pull it out. There we go. And then this was also behind that plate for some capacity. Gonna do the same thing over here, and this side we only have one. And again, the plastic piece is in front of the metal one. And the cable goes like that. Just like that. That reveals our hardware for this brace right here. And what we're gonna do is remove probably the 2 nuts up here. We're just gonna loosen the 2 nuts up there, and then we have to get all 6 of these bracket bolts out. So 13 millimeter on the impact. And then I have the training stand here. We're just gonna jack this up just to where it makes contact. I usually just hold it by the drain plug. Take these out. And maybe we can just, yeah, there we go. Just hit these lightly. And we should be able to break them free. Or, in this case, we're just gonna take the nuts off and leave the mounts up top. I was thinking we could just slide it off, but let's see, they're set up a little differently than I thought. Gonna get our sensors out of these little brackets. So this one clips into this one clips into those three. Actually, this one just came off with the clip. Just do that. Okay. Now we can pull that off. That's to the side for now. We're gonna clean that up in the parts washer because it's pretty gross. But before we do that, we're going to reinstall our prop shaft. So let me go grab that, get it at least mounted up here and in the rear, and we're gonna start torquing everything up. All right, so I need to get the prop shaft in now. I'm gonna go to the CV in the back and just pull it as far this way as it's willing to go. Try to hold it like that. I have a mark up front where it's gonna go into the transmission output shaft. And I'm gonna try to get that in like that. Get this relatively where it needs to go like that. And how are we looking up here? Okay, so this needs to turn. Okay, so our output shaft is just a little off. So we're gonna turn the input on the trans. We did. Okay. And now getting our center mount here in place. So there is that butyl tape there. So that's kind of gonna hold it in place a little bit. We're just gonna take these nuts and just put them on, at least a small amount. I'm gonna take a little hammer and just straighten that out. Might have gotten a little bent out of shape with the removal. There we go. Now we're gonna go back here, get our 6 compression nuts on. So just right back on the rear of this CV. Alright, so right there it actually stuck by hitting the other bolts, which might be a good opportunity to use that resistance to get these torqued to spec. So let's try that out quick. Alright, so I just took my ratcheting wrench and got 3 of these that are like easily accessible, tight, like that. It's right now binding on the big bolts on the guibo in the front, so that's what's holding this in place. I have my torque wrench set to 64 Newton meters, which is the spec for this style nut on the CV joint. Okay, that's one. And number 3. Gonna mark those as done. Again, just to let any other technician know that these were done, and then just to assist me for when I go back around. I know that I already did these. Once you start spinning this, you might not know you already did. All right, so now we gotta find a way to get the other 3. So I think what I'm gonna do is now actually put the drive shaft in the front fully in, and then we're gonna get this thing out of gear and then spin it, put it back in gear, and do the last 3 back here. So let's go back up to the front quick and get the front drive shaft bolts in. All right, so this is where our paint marking is. Put that like that. Get our nuts on from behind. So it would be best if you can get a torque wrench on the nut, but usually I just hold the nut and torque these by the bolt. And we're gonna be turning this as well. So to get the torque on it, we're gonna be putting it in gear, out of gear, in gear, out of gear. I'm gonna wait until the top one comes around. So I'm gonna start with this one right here. So I think it's 21 millimeters. All right, so I'm just gonna get a 21 millimeter wrench, put it on the back, and tighten this up by hand. Like right there, it stops. You got a 1/2 inch wrench set to 115 Newton meters. Torque it. Right there, she's done. Gonna mark it. Now we're gonna move on to the next one. So we gotta go into the car, get it into neutral, so we can turn this. Actually, we should be able to do it from here. I'm gonna go into the car and do it. Okay, car is back in neutral. We can turn the propeller shaft until the next bolt is where we want it to be. I'm gonna go back up, put it back into gear. And tighten this now. Newton meters on this. That. Gonna go back, take it out of gear, spin it, get that one through. Need to get the nut on it. We can quickly tighten this one up just a little bit while we're under here. Go back up, put it in gear. Last one, 450 Newton meters. Okay. So now that that's done, I'm just gonna mark this last one. So this also shows that I only took those 3 bolts out, or if anybody in the future is working on it, you'd say, okay, that's how it was removed prior. So depending on what they're doing, they'll be able to know. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to the rear. We're gonna finish up the 3 nuts for the constant velocity joint, and then we're gonna come back and do the center support bearing and the heat shields that go over it. And then I think we're all set with what we're doing right now. Oh, I gotta put these heat shields back up and obviously that brace there on the transmission. So let's go back there and get those last 3 nuts torqued up. All right, so now just gonna take our ratcheting wrench here, 16 millimeters. Get this all tightened up. These are our other 3. Ended up perfectly positioned just by doing it this way. So you guys are watching the way we're doing it. It's kind of convenient and it works out really well for us. So about that CV, you can go and unpack and repack grease into it, which wouldn't be just smash this head into the rear bumper. Which wouldn't be a dumb idea. We didn't take out too much out of the hub for when we did the input shaft seal. So I decided to not put it back in because I don't want to, first of all, mix grease, like a new grease with an old grease or the incorrect grease. We have plenty of CV joint grease here, but I didn't want to mess around with it. The bearing looked to be in good condition and was greased. I don't want to overpack it and actually cause an issue with it. So that's one of those things where you kind of really have to gauge how much grease you're removing and putting in and determine if it's something that you should be doing. So what I'm gonna do now is torque these 3, 64 Newton meters. 2. Actually, that was on like a crazy angle, so I don't know if that torque was true. Yeah, it is. It's just sliding up. Okay. Just be careful not to round those out. We know all 3 of these are torqued up now. Okay, so that's all done. Now we're just gonna move over to our center support bearing and get that thing torqued to spec. All right, so I just took this out and straightened it. Not a big deal, but when we were removing it, I must have kind of like bent it up here and then it got a little screwed up. So definitely something to be mindful of when you're removing these, get them straight down because they like to hang up. So what I did is I just straightened it, and now we're gonna put it back up and kind of see where it naturally wants to go. I'm not gonna guide it really in any direction except up. And the butyl tape should just stick right back to the body. You want this bushing and bearing as straight as, or as even on both sides as it's willing to go. So what I normally do is just get it to touch the chassis first, and then kind of just give it a quick wiggle. And then, like, I can see here, it's like, yeah, it's like completely crooked. So you have like, you can gauge like what area it's in by these holes, because it has the ability to move quite a bit. Try to even it up a little bit within that respect, and then bring it up a little bit, see where it goes. In this case, we'll do it there. Okay. And now this gets torqued to 21 Newton meters. If you're a little off, it's not the end of the world with that, but definitely want it to be similar. Like I have a little bit hanging off both sides, and that's kind of where it needs to be. 21 and 21. All right, so now we're gonna put the little plate back over here, and then we're going to put the big plate back over the shaft itself, and then the two little plates up front with our transmission cross brace back in, and we can get out from under here. All right, so I cleaned the brace for the transmission mount. I'm gonna put this back up here because it wasn't there to begin with. It should be there. Gonna grab the brace, and we're gonna wiggle the engine mount or engine mounts back into the spots that they should be in, like that. So same kind of thing with this. You just want to get the bolt started up and then kind of see where it positions itself. Don't really force it to go any which way. And what we're going to do is actually tighten the nuts on the bottom of the mounts first. So everything here is going to go to 19 Newton meters, including the two nuts. So nothing too crazy here. Surprisingly, just a few bolts, an aluminum brace, and 19 Newton meters is what this thing needs to hold everything up. So I'm just gonna shoot these two nuts in first. So I'm just gonna hit this quick. So you can see how it just kind of centered itself. So I'll probably just do those two outside ones first, or inside. 19. Okay. And then now, that one, this one, and then you can do the rest. Do the two insides first. 19, 19. Outsides here. All right, we can release this and get it out of our way. All right, so this one only had the one clip, like that. Oh, actually, I forgot I took them off with the clip, so just put it back away, take it off. Perfect. All right, next we're gonna grab our heat shields and put them back, like this. Gonna put this one back, plastic one goes over. Okay, so that just shows like that. Back here, same thing on the other side, goes like this. Yep, just like that. Plastic one goes over again. Nice. All right, and then some other things are gonna hold that up. So I think it was this one. This one and this one over here, and just this one over here. These are all the 10 millimeter. Okay, goes back up. Okay. See, like this one, it's kind of slippery. All right, so now we're gonna go back to this area here. I have this brace here that just, or heat shield, that goes in between this heat shield and the exhaust. So this is just to protect the drive shaft between the gas tank. All right, so this piece just goes right here and connects over this heat shield. And this is just for the shaft. Since there's the big shield here that protects the chassis from the exhaust, this small shield just protects this area of the drive shaft. And then just held in with two little 8 millimeters. Weird how it just on that side probably gets held in by this one. Yeah, it does. This goes up and actually holds it like that. So this one being bolted on, we'll do it. So let's get this one up now. And this one that has 3 8mm, you're gonna have 2 in the front, and then there's just like 1 right here, and then the exhaust bracket that holds the exhaust up is gonna hold it up as well. So let's get this into place. So you have to remove this one to get to this one. If you look, the mounting is behind it. I don't know if we mentioned that when we took this apart. It's been a few days. So I'm gonna put this big 8mm with the washer here. Okay, and then you have the 2 up front, which also hold those up. And those are just 2 little 8mm tappers. They don't have the washer on them. Okay. Give it a couple taps like that just to make sure none of that really that loose. This one's a little loose, but again, once the pressure's put up against it from this one being held up, you won't get any noise out of it, so that's fine. Our O2 sensors are where they need to be. They connect here. Those boxes are going to go back up. So that's honestly pretty much it for what we're doing underneath. I have obviously the transmission shield off right now and the exhaust, but we're gonna keep the exhaust off because we're gonna go do a starter, and it's gonna be easy to get those 2 bell housing bolts from back here. So we're gonna do the starter without the exhaust on, and then what else did I just mention? Oh, and then obviously the shield is just gonna go on last. The braces need to be put back on that go to the rear suspension, kind of like torsion bars that tie into this exhaust bracket. So we'll do that. We put the exhaust up, and then the only thing that I still have out other than what I just mentioned is the fender liners, and I'm gonna leave them out just because we're gonna torque the rear suspension under a load, and if they're out of the way, it's just better to put them in after. So yeah, let's go. I'm gonna clean up over here, and then we're gonna go move on to the starter. So let's do that now.